All right, guys, back with the 35 by 77 podcast. I have no idea what happened. Thank you, Brett and Bobby, for sticking with me. Sorry, guys, if anybody's still online. I'll record this and then put it on the board. So I'm with Bobby and Brett, two people who need no introduction to Pirate Nation. Both Bobby and Brett have been long-time supporters of this program. Both have spent time as coaches with ECU football, and they both have continued to be involved either as fans or as analysts. Bobby, of course, is a regular on Stephen Igo's show on 94.3 and does an excellent job with his weekly write-ups, preparing us for each game and the strategy and analysis of the team that we're going to play. I appreciate you being here, Bobby. And, of course, Brett, who is not only a fan and continues to be involved, but is also the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator at Anderson University. So welcome, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Yes, Sean. Good to be here as always.
Thank you. So, Brett, I'd love to just do a quick catch up and see how your season went and what it's been like for you. Is this your third year at Anderson?
So we were there. I got there in the fall of 22, recruited the first class. We practiced for a year in 23, and then we've played 2 seasons. So it's actually 4 full years of being here at AU. Now we've only played 2 seasons of football. So it's gone by quick. Been fun to get off the floor with a new program and starting to really see the fruits of our labor. We won 3 our first year. We were 5-2 this year and kind of got banged up, didn't finish great, but making some big strides. Really proud of where we're at defensively. I think we finished 19th in the country in Division II in total defense. So we're making strides, and got to navigate this portal like everybody else is doing right now. And if we find the right pieces, we think we're in for a big year here in 2026.
That's impressive, especially with the startup and then to have the season that you guys had. And we're definitely going to get to the portal. And one of the things that the three of us were talking about before we went live and then crashed was some of the experiences that you're having at the D2 level in terms of the portal, and also just the sort of fan disillusionment that I think is sort of fast approaching. So let's get right into the first topic then, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the incredible and I'll say improbable ECU Military Bowl victory against Pitt. I put on the message board that it was not on my bingo card for us to win. I had hoped that we would stay close, maybe by 10 points in my mind was a victory, given the loss of Caton and Smith and then Montgomery. Boy, did they surprise me. Bobby, first, your thoughts on the game and maybe something that you were not expecting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you there. I thought there was not a chance the Pirates could win this one, and was just hoping that they would keep it close. And I kind of alluded to that in the write-up there. And to me, a couple things I wanted to see going into the game was, how did Chasen Ditta look? That he looked like he belonged in an FBS game, and I thought he accomplished that. I mentioned on Steven's show that Anthony Smith needed to have a big game for us to have some success on offense, and he did that. And then lastly, I was just really impressed with the pre-snap looks and pressure packages on the defensive side. I thought that was really the defensive the difference in the game and what allowed us to be victorious.
What do you think, Brett?
Yeah, I think so. I'm about to turn 40 here on Thursday, and I've been an East Carolina fan my entire life, and I can remember all the big wins. Going back to the Peach Bowl and the Miami win after Fran, and certainly being a part of the VT and the West Virginia wins and those things. And then, of course, Bobby and those guys had so many big wins with Ruff. I don't know if I've ever enjoyed – the ones you're a part of as a coach or as a player are a little bit different. and then of course the wins over State and Carolina, and those are huge for different purposes. I don't know if I've ever been more proud to be an East Carolina guy than I was on Saturday. I mean, that was it defies logic, to go out there and beat a team Pitt was a good ACC team. Now that team was one win away from playing for the ACC championship, and Narduzzi has built a great reputation as a defensive coach, and when he spills blood in the water, he's going to pressure you some more. And to go out there with a backup quarterback and neither coordinator and all that, and then to come out and it wasn't a fluke. I mean, if anything, the game was probably more disparate than the final score showed, given the officiating malfunctions. So just I text Blake, and I was like, I don't know if I've ever been more proud than I was on Saturday watching that one.
So I am an old guy, and I was at the 90 Pitt ECU game, and I don't think I've been as proud to be a Pirate as I was at that moment in Dowdy Ficklin. And when Blake crossed the goal line and we went ahead, it really kind of felt full circle. And I think the other thing, just being there in person, guys, was it was just clear that Pitt fans also, they just, from the beginning, just did not seem to be into the game. Our fans were louder. You could just tell for us it meant more. But apart from what their fan base sort of was thinking, what transpired on the field, to me, to piggyback on what both of you said, our play, I thought we were more aggressive than they were. I thought the game plan, Bobby, to kind of echo what you said, was just brilliant. I mean, I thought Harrell I just thought it was a gutsy performance on the coach's part. And I really like what they did with Chasten. I mean, you could tell they dialed back on the offense. It almost looked like, having spent way too much time looking at Chasten's film, it almost looked like it was a lot of that offense was sort of very familiar to him when he was in Austin. Simple reads, a lot of cross routes. So hats off to just sort of not giving him too much. Anything else about the game that sort of struck you? Was there a moment for either one of you when you thought, we're going to win this?
I thought there was a moment I thought we were going to lose it, which was during that referee fiasco. I was like, there's no, when Biles scooped and scored, I was like, you can't bounce back from that emotionally. And credit to Blake and the guys, they did. That was no doubt. I thought it was kind of over at that point for the Pirates.
I text my brother. I was like, he better man than me, because I might have pulled my football team off the field after that. It was that bad. And couple that with the spot a few plays before that on the third down, the guy coming back to the ball. I mean, the officiating is what it is. I didn't feel great at halftime because we were given about 4 or 5 short fields, either because of forced turnovers or, just getting quick 3 and outs. And I think the wind played a factor in the game. And when you only have 3 points, despite dominating the field position battle, I certainly didn't feel great. And then it just didn't seem in the first half offensively. I think Rodney Freeman caught him off balance a couple of times on 3rd and long. Pitt, I text Steven during the game, Pitt came out and it was kind of base pressure, 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. I think when they just figured out they were going to pressure all the time, ECU kind of gapped them a couple times on that kind of 6-up look that they were showing at the line of scrimmage late with some outside runs. So they got them into more kind of base stuff on 3rd down and said that was the end of that. I thought once they figured out our 3rd down plan was not to sit back and drop back and throw the ball, I thought we were in trouble. But yeah, credit the play caller. I don't think Coach Freeman did a bad job at all. We're able to establish a little bit of a run game instead of just playing drop back, which would have not been good for Chaston the entire game. And then credit to him, he made, I wouldn't call them higher level throws. One of them's the one-on-one ball, and Smith goes, and that throw was a little bit low or short and inside. And, Anthony, that's a hard ball to cover from a defensive perspective. And then, of course, the kind of the glance bang 8 route that, that's what really good players do. They turn 10-yard gains into 80-yard gains. And, that seemed to be all we needed, but that was enough. And that's it's a beautiful thing about football sometimes. And certainly the turnovers played the key factor. I'm reminded a lot of the Skip Holtz, Lou Holtz 7 areas of football, and the number one, other than the score, obviously, that dictates who wins the game, is the turnover margin. And that was the kind of game we had to have defensively to win.
Well said. And I think one of the things that to sort of touch base with what both of you said in terms of some of the schematics during the game, one of the things that Blake has sort of shown a real propensity to do during his tenure here is to adjust. Whether to adjust on the more so on the defensive side of the ball, he's just a mad genius on that side, and is not afraid to really sort of be decisive and switch gears. I think early on when Baker was here, I think he struggled, as you would expect, sort of a new OC to do, to switch gears a bit. But Blake is a winner, and we're going to talk a little bit about him later. Just really quickly, Bobby, you and Brett have been around a lot of football. Have you ever seen an inadvertent whistle call like that, where so much was on the line?
I haven't seen it to the extent where there was just I've seen it where a touchdown's been taken away. I've seen that sort of thing, but then the plays that happened afterwards, that was new to me, and the momentum shift from that. That was a first for me.
I have 1994 North Carolina high school state playoffs. West Brunswick has won 2 state championships in a row. So my dad has taken over for 2 back-to-back state championships down there, and they're playing in the second or third round of the playoffs, and they call it the fumble rooski. You guys, Sean, I'm sure you remember the play where you would hit the quarterback's hand and the center would fall, and the guard comes around late. He looks like he's about to walk in for a touchdown. Referee blows it dead. Eastern Randolph wins the game. So it cost my dad maybe a state championship. So as bad as the one on Saturday was, that'll never be the worst inadvertent whistle in the Hickman household. But, yeah, that one was even. Now, you can see how a referee might get fooled on a fumble rooski play. I got no answers for that one on Saturday, because, that never looked like forward progress was stopped. The funny thing about that play was, as I'm sitting there, I'm in one recliner and my wife's right beside me, and I'm like, that's a terrible run. Like, it looked like he missed the first cut, 4th and 1. And if he hits the first cut, it's a 5-yard gain. And then I'm like, oh, not a bad run. And then I go use the restroom thinking we just scored, and I hear the whistle, and I think I heard my wife throw the remote or something down. So it was, it was egregious, but it'll never be the worst one in our family.
That's a painful memory, Brett. That's the thing about football. It's just a lot of pain and then some love. Let's talk a little bit about Dida and what we saw from him. Bobby, first, your thoughts. What in your mind, what were you sort of considering a win for him in this game, sort of in terms of on-field play, whether he won or lost? What were you hoping to see from him?
Composure was really the first thing. I wanted him to look like he belonged, wasn't overwhelmed by the moment. That's for his first outing, that's as tough of a defense as we're going to face and he's going to face. And I thought he did an admirable job. That you hit it earlier. They made some simple concepts in the passing game, made it easy for him. I saw a lot of those kind of air raid quick game concepts that a lot of teams run that they utilize as well. The thing I was surprised about was how much they ran him, but I think that kind of worked in his favor. The first play, they kind of did an RPO bubble screen quarterback power type deal. and he followed up with the run. And I thought that was good for him to get hit on the first play of the game, and that really helped. There's a few times I noticed he did have an internal clock kind of in his head where he maybe escaped or moved in the pocket when he didn't need to. But again, his first start against a team that brings quite a bit of pressure, I thought he did an admirable job.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking the same thing in my mind before the game started, and I think it sort of posted. I don't think we can judge him on sort of win or losing this game, but on another set of criteria. Brett, what did you see, and then what do you think Pitt tried to do to him early in the game or consistently through the game to put pressure on this freshman quarterback?
I echo what Bobby said. Is like that's a miserable prep for a first time play caller and a first time quarterback. When you sit there and Pitt will get in second and long or third and long, they were consistently either getting in a 7-up double mug look, and you don't know who to ID as the fourth rusher, so you don't necessarily know who the back's responsible for. You don't even the couple of the plays that the linebacker made, and he's a really good player. That could have been offset by simply sliding the protection one way or making sure we put that. Okay, let's make sure we take care of 8. Let's make sure the line's responsible for him in pass pro. That kind of stuff is stuff that you can't simulate it in practice, because this guy's still learning. Okay, this guy, when you're playing quarterback, okay, where's my receiver going to be? And particularly in the JDB offense, there's a lot of choice routes. So you have to be on top of, okay, this guy's probably going to break it here, break it there. He's going to come back. Now you're throwing the element of having to flip protections on him and have to do all that. It's just a lot. I mean, it's a really hard prep. And the best thing the kid did is he didn't turn the ball over, right? He turned the ball over the once, and I don't even know if you can blame him for the strip sack. I don't know what the call was. I mean, maybe he had autonomy to flip the protection, but he didn't force throws. He didn't make a great throw there on the goal line on the little smash concept. Pitt about picked that off the corner, came off the corner route. We were going it was early in the game, going to the end zone, but other than that, he didn't put us in terrible situations. He didn't take too many sacks. He didn't, and he took care of the football. And I think if you said before the game that he'd have a 2-0 touchdown to interception ratio, and never put the defense in a compromising situation, I think you'd have had to take that. The game had to be won by playing a defensive centric field position game and an opportunistic offense. I think this is a problem with coaches in general, right? They want to win a certain way all the time. A really good coach wins with the team he has that day. And great defense, good kicking game, that's always going to travel. And if you're going to play with a backup quarterback, you have to put the game on the defense's shoulders, and then you have to be opportunistic, and your best player on offense has to go out and make plays, and that's what Smith did.
Yeah, that's a great analysis. One of the things I think that I really appreciated about Blake was his ability to be patient with Dida. I think it would have been very easy to panic in the game plan, and to say, look, we're going to push this kid into running some type of regular offense. And they didn't. And, Blake was willing to sort of take, had this not gone right, because it was clear, right? It was a dialed back offense. And it was an offense that I saw very, very few choice routes with this one. I saw a lot of structured routes, right? And with a lot of sort of, get your first progression. And again, because I spent way too much time looking at this high school film, the thing that really struck me about his game, and I had really sort of close seats to and able to watch him, is he was remarkably consistent from his senior year to what he did on the field. He was a kid that in his film was really good at making that first sort of read, quick release, and then let go of it. And you could tell in the offensive sequence, that's exactly what they wanted him to do. And then the other thing that he did in his film that I thought he did very consistently in the game, and this sort of echoes what both of you said, is he used his legs. Like Dida has really good legs, and he did not hesitate. And Bobby, this gets to what you were talking about, this internal sort of clock. I liked that he said, look, if there's not someone open, I'm going to take off. And that's exactly what he did in his high school film. So I think what struck me was he stayed very true to his game, and to the coach's credit, I mean, they really sort of scripted something to help him. There were a few times, because I looked back at the game, I looked at, sort of taped on ESPN. There were a few times when he made a few progressions, like sort of a 1-2-3 read, and then he hit his hot route. But for the most part, it was sort of one read and go, and he did really well, and as well as you would expect an 18-year-old kid who was coming into a high pressure game. I really thought that it was a win for ECU, not just in the win-loss column, but it was a win just in terms of now knowing that, hey, if they decide to go, I believe that if they decide to go with just one really good portal QB, I think the fan base can feel comfortable with Dida in the mix. And it's not somebody that I think we have to overly worry about. Brett, what do you think? Do you think based on his performance, do you think if Blake makes the decision to just bring in one sort of proven QB, do you think that is what we need for next year? Would you be okay with that in terms of just a two quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I qualify this as saying, we don't really know because we're not at practice every day, right? So the one thing the kids showed that you cannot put a price or a premium on it. And Bobby knows this from being around Shane for 4 years. Like, confidence and moxie at that position is a non-negotiable if you're going to be great at it, right? So there's a lot of guys who can throw a football really well that can't play quarterback. The kid looked like he's a quarterback, if that makes any sense. And East Carolina people know this because, we've been blessed since the early 80s of at least one or two quality quarterbacks per decade, from Jeff Blake to Mark Crandall to David Garrard to, Shane Carden to Dominic Davis or whoever it's been, right? I mean, there's always been a lot. I would argue after watching that kid play, I think he's a better fit for the air raid than he is the vertical choice concepts. The vertical choice game is so predetermined on getting the ball down the field. The bigger arm helps you. Also, when you're not dealing with predetermined routes and you don't know where the break points are from the receivers, you have to hold on to that ball a little bit longer, which puts more of a premium on being able to really rip it once the receiver does it. Bobby's the expert on the true air raid, but like you put in Y cross, there's not going to be much deviation other than, some people might run it at 12, some people might run it at 14, but that Y is going to be in a similar area on the field all the time. The only real conversion routes you have in the air raid are, if I had a hitch, it can turn into a go, right? Or this could turn from a go to a post, but it's still going to be in the general area. So when you have predetermined routes, when you have predetermined hots built in without really having to worry about flipping protections, I think that's why you saw the guys that Texas Tech had for a number of years, B.J. Simons, Cliff Kingsbury. They weren't big arm guys, and certainly Shane wasn't either. The guy just knew where to go with the football. He was extraordinarily accurate. I would be perfectly fine after watching that kid of saying we're going to go out and spend money on one guy, and at worst, this guy's a backup. And I mean, he's already shown he can come in as a backup and win a game against a high-level opponent. So, again, that's qualified by saying you don't really know. You don't watch him every day at practice. Did he play out of his mind? Did he not? I mean, so I'm excited to see what that young man's going to do if he hangs around in an air raid system versus what ECU's been running.
Yeah, agree. Bobby, I want to get your thoughts because you are the air raid guy here. I just want to read to you. I love Sammy Batten's recruiting work, and I wrote a quote from Sammy that he got from Ditta's coach at Lake Travis. I think that's the other thing is Lake Travis, 6A powerhouse football team in Texas. The game didn't seem. I think that's the other thing. The game just didn't seem too big for him. After a play got called back, and that from the run, and then the fumble, and then the score by Pitt. It would have been. I was interested to see what Ditta did. What he came right back and scored a touchdown to Smith. Here's what Ditta's coach Blake said. Baker said about him. Somebody who Baker also his coach. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of Carter. Is the head coach at Lake Travis. Carter also coached Baker Mayfield. So here's what he said about Ditta. He's kind of got some of the moxie like Baker does. Carter said. But his athleticism at this stage in high school is a little more like Hudson Card. I think Card was the kid that played at Purdue and had a pretty good season. Hudson played wide receiver as a sophomore and then became the quarterback. He's kind of a mix of those guys. He's got some of Baker's confidence and moxie, and he can run around and sling it just a little bit like Hudson. Bobby, thoughts on Chasten and this new system, or as a sort of competition between him and one other person next year?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of y'all just said, and both of y'all have posted this on the message boards as well, and I agree with it. I think he's going to be better suited for the air raid, and with Jordan Davis and his Texas roots, I'm sure there's some familiarity too with Chasten Ditta and seeing him throw. I'm curious if North Texas recruited him or how hard they recruited him, but he's obviously a guy that is under recruited, so he has a chip on his shoulder. Just kind of like Shane Carden, like Baker Mayfield as a former walk-on, two guys that he's been compared to. And the thing too, we talked about his composure and looking like he belonged. And now just think about it. All right, you have a spring with Jordan Davis in the offense, and then a fall camp. Like this game, I'm pretty confident he didn't have the ability to check plays at the line of scrimmage. He didn't have the ability to do those sort of things. So when he has a full offense or off season, and if he's named the guy, he's going to have some of that autonomy to be able to make those checks and kind of confirm what he sees on the defensive side to be able to counter that. And so I think that's a big thing to consider too going forward. Like, yeah, he looked like he belonged, and now let's just imagine him with that ability to kind of counter the defense some and what he's seeing at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, excellent points. He definitely has a great cerebral game about him as well. That's an excellent observation, just in terms of checkdowns. All right, guys, we're going to come back to Ditta a little bit in a couple minutes. I also we're at 30 minutes. I want to make sure I don't keep you guys for too long. And we're going to talk in a few minutes just a little bit about Jordan Davis and what he might be bringing. But first, let's talk a little bit about Blake Harrell and what he's doing with the program right now. So, Bobby, you've been a part and have seen sort of multi sort of administrations come in, head coaches. So have you, Brett. What are you saying that's different with Blake? What is he doing right now that you think is working so well with the program?
This is not going to be some super intelligent way of explaining this other than just saying it just seems like he gets it. Like he gets it in all areas. He gets it with the players and what they're going through, how to connect with them, how to communicate with them. He gets it from the fan base perspective, from a student perspective. We saw what he did. I think it was the Memphis game with all the Supdog stuff in the student section. Like he's just a guy that gets Eastern North Carolina, gets the culture here. And at a place like ECU, like that's vital. I mean, we saw it in 2016. Somebody comes in here that doesn't quite understand the culture, it's not going to go well. And to see what Blake's been able to do when he got hired, I told Steven, I didn't quite follow ECU in the Holtz era. So really my introduction to East Carolina was under Ruff and McNeil, but it reminds me a lot of Ruff and how he connects with the players and that sort of thing. And quite honestly, I think Blake understands the community and the fan base probably even more so than Ruff, at least in terms of how he reaches out to the community and to the fan base.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. I mean, it's as simple as that, and it's as complicated as that, and that's something that you either have or you don't, and completely confer with that. Brett, what are you saying in terms of what Blake is doing that is different right now than what we had the past two with Montgomery and Houston?
Yeah, I've known Blake for 15 years, right? When he was at Lenore Ryan, I was a contemporary of his. I was the coordinator at North Greenville, so we played each other there. And then he was at the Citadel when I was at Gardner Webb. We played each other there. In fact, he interviewed for a job that I was leaving, and that's kind of how our relationship started. Um, I think, number one, I think there's a humility that exists from a small college background. You know, the guy was a high school coach. He was, sorry, did I lose y'all?
Oh, you're good. Okay, we got
Okay.
it. So I'm sorry okay, so you said you've known Blake.
Yeah, I've known him for 15 years, right? And we've kind of been at similar areas, and you know where our teams have played each other. The guy's just got a great humility about himself, which I think that people really respect. I think having a high school and a small college background, you know, East Carolina is the NFL to him, right? You know, if you'd have told him 15 years ago when he was making $32,000 a year as the linebacker coach at Lenore Ryan, and you told him he's going to be the head coach at East Carolina, I think he probably would have laughed at you. But he doesn't take that for granted. And, you know, in some ways, I think the transient nature of small college football has helped him with having a systematic approach to teaching, because you got to be able to teach people within a year as opposed to having them 4 or 5 years into a program. You know, that's just from the raw football coach standpoint, right? Which, you know, he got the job because he was a very competent defensive coordinator, a very good one, you know, and you just don't know. You know, there's surface level things. You know, Scott Frost going to Nebraska, everybody thought that was going to work, right? And Luke Fickell, he kills it at Cincinnati. It's not working great at Wisconsin. You don't know why. Mike Houston on paper was the perfect hire at East Carolina.
Right.
And, you know, if you'd have told me that wasn't going to work in 2018, I would not have believed you. And that just goes to show you it's a little bit of a crapshoot. And I'm not so sure John Gilbert didn't luck into this generation Steve Logan, if that makes sense. I think he can be that. He's got the integrity of Art Baker. He's got the football acumen on the defensive side of a Steve Logan who had it on offense, and he seems to get East Carolina the way Ruffin did. And he does it all with a great humility. And, you know, every decision he makes, he understands the weight of this program. He understands the people of Eastern North Carolina. I think being a small town North Carolina guy helps him. But he, you know, I can't say enough about, he's a guy that you root like crazy for if you know him. And you just, and I know people rooting like crazy for him because he's the head coach at East Carolina. But we're not close friends or anything. But as a guy who's known him for a long time, he's pretty friggin' easy to root for.
Yeah, that's an excellent analysis and insight. I have started to do some consulting work in my older age on sort of helping people make hires. And one of the things that both of you are talking about is his authenticity, and in leaders, that's invaluable. And he's also just seems to me a hell of a teacher and and he plays damn good defensive sort of coach as well. Just thinking about that really quick, Brett, because I know this is also your area of specialty. It looks like we've hired as the new DC Jordan Hawkins from Memphis. Do you know anything about him?
I do not. My thoughts on the defensive coordinator hire is you're hiring a first time play caller on offense, right? So I think it's important in this day and age. East Carolina, when you're not at the top of the food chain, he's going to consistently have turnover on his staff. If you lose 1 or 2 a year, that's still a lot when you're in it. When you lose both coordinators. So my first thought is getting an experienced play caller on that side of the ball is important, because you don't want to have to go through the growing pains that you went through 2 years ago, even with JDB, with a first time coordinator on defense too. The other thing I think that's important is as transient as college football is, if you can have one side of the ball that has a system in place, that you understand the teaching progression year to year, and it can get installed quickly. I think that's really important. And this is going to be Blake's defense. Like, the terminology is not going to change, the verbiage isn't going to change. So if Hankins and Tesh and the rest of that defensive staff can continue to just make seamless transition from spring practice to summer workouts to fall install, the easier it's going to be. You just don't want to have to do that. You're going to have to do it on offense, because he's not an offensive-minded head coach. Unless you're going to promote from within on that side of the ball, it's just easier to make sure you have one side of the ball where it remains seamless. And I think it's a good hire on the surface, but like I said, the scheme's as good as the players, right? You got to go get good players in the portal. You got to keep hitting on high school guys, and I do feel confident. I think he's built up enough equity over now 5 or 6 years that you can anticipate that East Carolina is going to put a very good defense on the field every year.
Bobby, do you know much about him? I mean, I did some quick reading. Looks like it's somewhat similar to what Blake sort of believes in, an aggressive defense, multiple up front. Do you know much about him?
I don't, other than the breakdown I did for our Memphis game, and he looked like he ran a lot of 3 high safety stuff at kind of the 3-3-5, and I don't know if that necessarily was due to his personnel that he had at Memphis. That could have been part of it, but the fact that from Steven's reporting, it seems like both are under the understanding it's going to be Blake's defense, and the fact he's willing to come in here and do that, I mean, to me that tells me he's a low to no ego guy, which I think is going to be important in this type of situation. So I think that should work pretty well, that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, that's a great point about the lack of ego, because my sense is Blake doesn't have a lot of patience for egos in the room. Guys,
the other thing is this is, like, people don't understand. Nick Saban's the greatest college football coach of all time, right? And all these offensive coordinators, from Bill O'Brien to Brian Daboll to Mike Locksley to Steve Sarkisian to Lane Kiffin, they all use the same verbiage. Like, you're running the Alabama offense. You're right here. You're running the East Carolina defense. You're not running the Memphis defense. You're not running this system. It's easier for one guy to come in and learn the verbiage that, let's just say East Carolina has 20 defensive players back next year. It's easier to learn that from one guy than it is for the whole organization to have to learn what they were running at Memphis. So you don't upset the apple cart if you don't have to. Yeah, it's not broken, right? It's not where the offense was 2 years ago. This is a proven commodity. Keep the train going and get it coached.
Yeah, consistency is so key, especially in football. Guys, I'm going to just quickly, we'll come back to the portal just for a moment. I just want to keep you guys just for a couple more minutes. Let's talk just briefly about Jordan Davis. Did either of you had a chance to see any highlights from North Texas and San Diego State?
I watched the first quarter, so I haven't gotten much past the first quarter. We had to switch over to K-pop Demon Hunter in our house, so I did get the first quarter in, though.
That was probably a smart choice, Bobby.
Yeah.
What general thoughts when you were watching that first quarter? Because my understanding, Davis was the play caller.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job, mixing in a good blend of the run and pass, and I think that's really what you saw from North Texas all year. Like, people think the air raid and think just throwing the ball over the field. Running the football is what gets this offense going. That's what opens everything up. And, they ran a lot of quick game concepts. They ran a lot more outside zone than I was expecting under Jordan Davis. And kind of what Brett was just alluding to with the defensive side of the ball and continuity, one thing I think of with this hire, you both have kind of mentioned it, the the veer and shoot type offense that we'd run before. That's a little bit more difficult to learn, and especially in a trend in college football where it's just year in and year out cycling in players. I'm wondering if this will actually benefit East Carolina, moving forward, being that the air raid is built out of repetition of the same routes over and over again. So that could end up playing in their favor rather than having all these option routes and making sure both the quarterback and receivers are reading the same things when there's turnover at those positions year in and year out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bobby. I mean, with basically almost a new install with a new sort of set of players almost every year, having an install that is as consistent as possible, like on the defensive side, seems to be the way to go. I mean, I I spent way too much time looking at the veer and shoot when Baker got here. And I think it's harder on the front end, I think, to learn for a quarterback just because of all the different choice routes and the box counts but once you get it under your belt, right, you can really be aggressive as a quarterback. But initially, it's a big ask. With this, because of the structured routes and a lot of quarterbacks are running some type of spread in high school, the transition should not be overly difficult. And then I watched the highlights and watched the first quarter. I was also surprised at some of the outside zone runs and lots of inside zone, but also lots of spreading the field, quick release, 1 to 2 reads, and then the ball was out. Brett, did you have a chance to watch the game at all?
We're not on Drop Pop or whatever Bobby's on. We're on old school WWE wrestling in my house right now. That's what we're on. I don't let them watch anything before or after 1997 because of language. So I have not watched it. I did watch the Tulane, the championship game, which of course he wasn't calling the plays, but the nuts and bolts of the system. I do echo what Bobby said. Back in 2010, I'd already left, but I was anxious to see how quickly you could implement the air raid from what East Carolina was doing at that point with Coach Holtz. And that was a seamless transition. That was a bad defensive team, but East Carolina still won 6 or 7 games and ironically played in the Military Bowl, Lincoln and Ruffin's first year. The one thing I've always admired about the air raid, and I've never been a part of a program that's ran it, but people swear by the installation plan, right? You put in, it's all on the field by the 7th day of practice, and it's just consistent repetition, and it's this is what we're going to do. Now, I do think it's became a little bit more diverse in the run game over the course of the last 10 years with Lincoln really developing the counter tray game, and some people go more into gap scheme, some people go more into zone scheme, and that seems to be more contingent on what type of personnel you get up front and what type of back you have. But I mean, he's going to have the same sheet that Mike Leach had in 2005 that they're going to have by day 5 of spring practice, and it's going to be installed and they'll be able to move the football. I mean, skill guys are a dime a dozen now. Yeah. You can find them. The biggest thing is getting the trigger man and seeing what you can do to possibly have to remake the offensive line after somebody goes out and buys a couple of those guys off our roster too. So I'm confident in Blake that he's made the right hire. I do think, the fair question is, can the guy coach quarterbacks, right? Because he's never done it. But, I think I do think it's important to have a play caller that's back there with the quarterbacks. So I don't have any uneasiness about the hire. I think it'll be a good hire. I think he'll get good players in here and they'll keep it going.
It's interesting. Davis was a wide receiver at Texas Tech in 2014 when Kingsbury was the coach, and of course running the sort of a version of the air raid. And you're exactly right about the install. How Mummy and Leach. There's some great videos of them when they were at Kentucky, and some old practice videos that Leach put together. And the genius of what he did with their practice is, every part of the offensive practice, from how the quarterback took the snap to the drills that the wide receivers were running, everything was connected to the drill was basically the play call during the game. Just the simplicity of it. I did read that Morris had a few more sort of, the little tempo was at times maybe not quite as aggressive as Baker's, but certainly tempo with how they run it. And so it'll be interesting. And I do think the transition should hopefully be, not too sort of complicated. Some final thoughts here. We can talk portal. How about this? Just kind of a round table here on how do you guys feel about the portal right now in terms of ECU's needs? Brett, we'll start with you. What do you think the top two needs are?
Well, I don't know if you can answer that without knowing exactly who's in. Now, I mean, I know there's obviously from a defensive perspective, which is where my mind goes first naturally, is there's a lot to replace, and so they're going to have to rebuild that unit. Now, I do feel really good about, Roy's going to put a good D-line on the field. I mean, he is proven time and time again that he's going to find. I mean, you talk about you think of Pitt, you think of great defense, you think of great defensive line. Our guys did not look out of place on Saturday, so they're going to be fine on the defensive line. Without doing a deep roster dive, I wouldn't know. I do know that even though I'm a defensive centric guy, you've got to have the right guy, the trigger man, and you got to have people that can block up front. And great quarterbacks, honestly, this might sound crazy, but great quarterbacks are easier to find than great offensive linemen now. And so, that's where you got to start. You got to start with finding the right trigger man, and you got to build around him, and you got to build the lines of scrimmage, whether or not that's through high school recruiting and development or that's through the portal. I told Steven last week, I was on his show, I don't know if there's a worse place to be right now from a portal standpoint than the G5. I really believe this because your best players are going to get plucked, and you're going to have guys that are going to get in the portal that have been in your program for a year or two, and they think they should get paid before they produce, or they've got a chance to go get actual playing time below them at the FCS level or the Conference USA or whatever it is. And that happens, the golden thing we have in Division II is our guys have nowhere to go. Like if you're leaving here because you're not playing, you're probably not going to go anywhere and play, right? So we're losing them from the top of our roster, but we're able to develop so that when those guys leave, we've had guys who've been in our system that can climb up. Blake and his staff have got the hard thing of trying to build the bottom of the roster for depth purposes, and they have to replace the top of the roster, and they've got to hope the guys who do choose to stay around end up hitting and they play. So, it's going to be a mad dash and a sprint for 10 or 11 days. Certainly, this is why you need the off-the-field staff. That's so important, the general manager and his, because you have to have an idea. And there's already discussions going on behind the scenes with agents, which is another nonsense topic. I'm happy to cast my feelings on that too, if you want to get into it. But they're having discussions with agents. They got to find out who's available. They got to find out who they can get on campus ASAP. They've already made offers behind the scenes. Everybody has. And then you got to get them enrolled in school in the span of 2 weeks. So they're going to enjoy this win probably, and then they'll be back in the office the middle of this week. They got to get ready to go, and it's going to be a 2-week sprint for every FBS and FCS coach in the country because that portal opens on January 2nd.
I think that's all well said, Brett, and I agree with all of that. And we could probably have an entire show on agents, right? I mean, it's killing the game. And eventually, if ESPN, they cannot have a business model where you have 5 to 10 teams that are watching, 5 to 10 fan bases that are watching college football. Right. I mean, I think they've got to help figure this out as well, too. Bobby, thoughts on the portal? Is there one position beyond the quarterback that you're most concerned about?
I mean, obviously, the offensive line, kind of Brett already alluded to it. To be a little bit different here, I'll go pass rusher. I'd love to get an edge pass rusher. I think that we're able to kind of disguise that a little bit with the scheme and that we run and some of the pressures that we bring. And it sounds like they like some of the corners that are already in the program. And the next one I'll bring on the offensive side would be the receiver position.
Yeah.
You're losing Anthony Smith and you've already lost Yannick Smith. So, and it sounds like there's a potential for Brock Spalding to leave. So you're going to have to replace, if nothing else, just bodies and experienced bodies. Because even if you like the guys that you've got in your system and have developed, they're still inexperienced.
Bobby, do you think that we can find enough talented wide receivers to come and play at ECU with this system?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
and I'm just going to base upon the previous time we ran it under Ruff. I mean, you look at Justin Hardy was obviously a walk-on from Vanceboro, and then you got Isaiah Jones. Nobody in that offensive staff room wanted to offer Isaiah Jones, but Ruff trumped everybody. So, and I'm glad he did, because obviously he ended up leading all-time NCAA receptions. So,
Great point.
yeah,
He legitimately caught more footballs than anybody else in history.
yes.
So that's recruiting in a nutshell.
That's a great point, Bobby, and well said, and should make the fan base feel a little better about some of these losses, and because it is a reboot, right, from almost every skill position.
You have to look at the portal and high school recruiting, for this matter, in the context of it's all supply and demand, right? Is you can shop for grade A beef, but there's not a lot of grade A beef out there on the O-line market. It just is what it is. And this is why in the National Football League, who gets drafted in the first 15 picks every year? It's the rare people. It's elite quarterbacks, it's elite offensive linemen, it's elite pass rushers, and it's elite corners. So, those are the four spots that you're always trying to upgrade, but those are the people that are getting paid a premium at this level. And what can ECU get from a receiver standpoint? It's like Bobby mentioned, like the list of guys at East Carolina alone who never had a Power 5 offer that went on to play in the NFL. Those guys are going to be there. You're going to find them. You're going to get the Dwayne Harris, who was a high school quarterback and really turned out to be a great player. Justin Hardy, Zay Jones, Keith Stokes. I mean, you can go back for 30 years and mention these guys. Those are, I don't worry at all about the skill guys. I think we can find safeties. I think we can find running backs. I think we can find inside linebackers. I think we can find receivers. The hardest thing is those guys, those big guys toward the line of scrimmage. Those people who can affect the quarterback, who can block for the quarterback, and people who can cover people running backwards at corner. Those are the hardest ones to find right now for any coach at any level.
Brett, do you think with some of the kids that you have watched at the D2 level, do you think there's much of a difference right now in terms of skill set between skill players at D2, FBS?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference, obviously, but if you look at like the D2 national champion this year, the last 5 years, Ferris State, if you look on the Massey rankings, they would be a middle of the pack MAC team. So like there's some really good players at this level, and there's some really good players at the FCS level. What you don't have is the depth. Heck, Ole Miss is playing with Ferris State's quarterback right now. So every team's got 5 or 6 kids who could play FBS football, and each team's probably got 20 to 25 that can play FCS football. So, but there's good players everywhere. Where I really think the secret sauce at the G5 level is, I think you can get a better high school player than you've ever been able to get, which is why I think you've seen East Carolina's gotten guys from Lake Travis, or they've gotten guys from these power programs that 15 years ago, those kids were all going to Texas or Texas Tech or Oklahoma or somewhere like that. There's guys who used to be borderline guys that were getting 10 to 12 Power 4 offers that are now not getting those because each team's taking 10 less high school players a year. So, and I think ECU's benefited from that. Like Yannick Smith's a good example of that. That kid was a really good player at Somerville, and he didn't get huge offers. Now he's going on and he's going to have a chance to play Power 4 football, but is it worth getting that guy on the front of his career and being a higher level player than it was waiting for a guy to be that in 3 or 4 years? That's the choices you have to make at the G5 level right now.
I put something on the message board a couple weeks ago. There was a study that the only study that I was able to come across, or ChatGPT was able to come across for me, was from a study done by Indiana University looking at sort of success rate of portal transfers. And one of the things that they had specifically looked at were sort of transition from G5 to, and I hate that term, by the way, G5 to Power 4. And what their analysis showed is that the majority of kids who made the step up had less production, did not perform well. The production piece was less. Now you could sort of make the argument that maybe it's a step up in competition or whatever, but the vast majority of kids who made the sort of that leap, and I don't even think it's a leap from most schools. I mean, for Pitt, going from ECU to Pitt, honestly, from what I saw, it's not a huge sort of uplift. But I guess if you're looking at those top schools, so I think it's a case of the grass is not always greener. The money obviously is better, right? And so it's a whole nother argument.
You have to remember those guys need backups, right? And until the salaries become public, you call them what they want, salaries, NIL deals or whatever, until they become public, you have no idea what role those guys are being recruited or bought to be played. You don't know that. Like they could be taking the guy who's been a decent player in the American to go play in the Big Ten, and they say, well, okay, we think this guy can play on 3 special teams and give us 15 snaps a game. And that's happening. Like Ohio State is out there. They're recruiting really good ACC players that are backups for them now. That's the nature of the beast. And until that stuff becomes publicized, I think the kids, everyone, this is a rule of thumb. Everybody thinks they're the exception. Yeah, that I'm gonna leave here, or my coach ain't using me right here, so the grass is greener there, and I'm gonna go and become Mr. All-American here. The truth is, if you're really not playing where you are, or you're not catching 100 balls here, you're probably not going to catch 100 balls there. Everybody thinks they're the exception, and that's every high school player in America who bets on them. For every Hunter Renfro that went and chose to walk on somewhere, there's some kid who should have chosen to play FCS or Division II football because he's never going to get off the field can never get on the field at the FBS level. So, but some people, sometimes you got to bet on yourself. So that's what we're seeing right now. But everybody thinks they're the exception. And I by nature, I think kids are just more willing to be transient now. There's just not as much school pride, and the college football we all grew up on it's gone, it's dead. So like we can adapt as fans, we can leave as fans, which is going to happen more and more. But we're going to have to make a choice sooner or later whether or not we're all in on it or we're not. And I'm just fans in general, not just East Carolina fans.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think there are some schools at the FBS level that are in G5 level that are in much worse trouble than we are, right? I mean, look at the Sun Belt, look at, the MAC, Conference USA, it's, I think they're the first programs to go in this, right? Okay, last question for you guys. And I also just want to thank you both. I can't think of 2 better people to sort of wrap up the season with. I also want to say I've never had a podcast without a glitch. So like I said, low tech, high quality guests. All right, Bobby, I'll start with you. Are we upsetting Alabama next year?
I would love to see it, but breaking in a new offensive coordinator and new quarterback, I'm going to say it's unlikely.
All right, Brett.
No, next question.
I hope to be able to at least make the game. So it'll be interesting. Gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to post this on the message board. I hope people listen to it because your insight and answers have been incredible. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Sorry this didn't work out for the live stream, but I promise I'll post this. Have a Merry Christmas, early Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, everybody. I love being part of Pirate Nation. Take care, guys.